Hi, I'm Ricardo, and this is Petite Coding. Okay, guys. So as we promised, we will keep going on with this stuff that I don't like. Uh, this force unwrapping here. But first of all, you see this blue line here. This means we haven't committed yet. So let me just press Command U. When I'm pressing Command U, I get the test direct succeeding. So then I'll commit it and say added test for mage emblem. That's what I did right now. Commit files and push. Okay, and now this blue line disappears and we have updated code. Now there's some things we have to make sure, because I don't like this force unwrapping on the test either, because if something goes wrong, it will give me this as a failure, right? And then we will have to refactor this also. So first of all, we need to refactor this get emblem. This get emblem, since we have a definite amount of emblems we need, I'm going to choose the fighter emblem as the base emblem, and I'm going to decide to return it always like that, and never return a neo emblem, okay? And do not display an error. So first of all, what I'm going to do is refactor this, okay? And I don't want to throw any errors. Let me just, okay, if I comment out this and I don't want to throw any errors, then I'm having this test that says throws error, but I don't need it anymore, right? What I need is another test now. Okay, so instead of this, I'm just going to comment this out. All my tests will pass now again. But if the date is nil, if this date is nil, I want to do something else. So I'm going to say func test get current emblem for nil date, not throw an error, but returns fighter. Okay, so every time we don't know what the date is, I'm going to return a fighter, and that's the decision I'm going to make with this. And this is just in order to avoid this optional unwrapping and these optionals here, because I want to give it a value. Okay, and sometimes you will have to do these decisions like this, and you have to get the pros and cons of this. The pros is that it's not going to fail. The application won't crash if anything goes wrong, but in the runtime error you can have some errors. But since we're backing up with tests, it shouldn't matter too much. Okay, so I'm going to do let sut equals make sut, just the normal one, and I'm going to say xct assert not nil sut dot get emblem for date nil date. And since I'm throwing right now, I'm doing this try. Okay, so this date is it's actually passing, but it should fail, and it's not going to do it because this date also, I'm using this, and this calendar, the date may return nil or not, depending on how it's going. So let me just show you. I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to return nil, and as you can see, now I cannot unwrap this. Okay. Get emblem for date nil. Oh, this should work. Wait a second. Okay, yeah. So it's failing. You see how it's failing? Okay, this is failing because this is not nil. This SUT get emblem is a nil one, and it's not nil. And I want it, and I don't want it to be nil. So I'll return anything right now. I can return any emblem right now. Let's say assassin for now. Test fail. Gotta comment that out. Okay, if I comment this out, it doesn't. It's not nil. Okay, so as you can see, if I do this throw, okay. Okay, so I'm going to assert that this shouldn't be nil. And when Y throws something, it gets that this is nil since I'm optional. This is an optional. This is an optional chaining, and if it doesn't get it, it will return nil. Since I don't want it to be nil, I'm going to return something else. Let's just put return nil to see that it's still failing. I cannot return nil because it's an emblem, right? So I'm going to return an assassin. So this test does not return fighter, but does not return nil. Okay, so that's it. I don't need this test anymore because I'm testing the behavior of this component is different now. And now I want to func test get current emblem for nil date. Returns fighter. Okay, so let SUT make SUT. So I have one that's for not nil, and I want it to be equal my try SUT dot get emblem for nil date, and I want it to be dot fighter emblem dot fighter because I want that to be I want this to be the default one. Okay, since it's returning assassin right now, it should fail. So as you can see, optional emblem date assassin is not equal to fighter. So now I'm going to replace this with a fighter one and command U. And now all my tests are passing, and I have a new function here, and my emblem will never be nil. So I don't need this. But before refactoring this, I want to get rid of the throws and do a command U. Since it's not throwing anymore, this says no calls or functions occur with try expression. So I don't need a try here. And I actually don't need a try here, nor a try here, nor a try here. Command U. Build is failing. Why? Because now I don't need to force unwrap it. Command U. You see, the compiler guides you. Okay? We can leave this test because I don't want it to throw anymore. It will never throw now an error for any date. So I can also say XCT assert not throw SUT.get emblem for date nil. This will also pass. And this is just to document that I'm not going to throw an error anymore, and the throw is not here. And now the emblem, as you can see, doesn't need to force unwrap since I'm always getting the fighter emblem. And yes, this has its downsides since now we'll have to check more thoroughly the behavior of the code, but since we are using TDD, we should be okay with it. And that's the first step to get this out of the way, this emblem. Now I want to get rid of this one, this base date. Okay, but first of all, let's just commit this. And I'm going to say fix test, no, change test get emblem to not deal with unwrapped optionals. Unwrapped optionals. Yep, and commit and push. And that's it. Okay. So now for the base date, we need to do another trick with it. And the other trick is we're returning nil here. And yes, actually this is good. But if I want to do this and not get a base date here, what I need to do is, this is always an optional. What I need to do is to make sure that this never returns nil, since if this returns nil, this will crash. Okay, so what I want to do is get a date that's not that's we can do with any date that's before this, because this is the base date, and this actually this application will go to the future. I'm not interested in getting to the history records or something like that of what was the emblem sometime long ago. Also, the Mobile Legends app, it's fairly new, so I mean it comes with an iPhone, so it's a mobile app, so it's just when the iPhone started and everything like that. So just to be safe, and if I want to do some tracking history before and that, I'll use the base date. And I want the base date not to be this one, but I want to this get date. I want to return the date from 1970s and 1970s. So I need a test for that. And since this, it's really difficult to see when this will get me a nil date, I'll just need to return a nil date like this, and every test will fail right now. Let me just check what happens here. If I return nil, I have all these tests that will fail, and also this is crashing, you see, and I don't like that because I don't like this to crash. Okay, so what I have to do is, so there's a way to test this and not modify anything of here. So func test get date returns default mean date since 1970. Okay, so let SUT equals make SUT, and now let date equals SUT. So I'm going to do another function that says get default date. And since we don't have this default date, it's going to give me an error, so I need to create this function. Func get default date. Now command U. Yes, this is not returning anything, so I need to this get default date. Command U. Okay, now I'm getting this, and now yeah, I need to do this and say no. Actually, no. I need to say exit start equal this date is equal to my default date. That will be my date since 1970 with 0. Okay, that's what I need to do. And here says the date, that the function is not a date type, so I'm going to return a date. And since I'm returning a date, I need to return a date here. I'll return this just for the local date for it to fail. So it's failing. And you can see now that my default date is January 1st of 1970. So I want that, okay? So I want that. So I want this to return this time intervals since 1970, and that's the 0. Okay, Command U. Okay, that's it. Now I know that this will always return this base date if there's nil. Okay, so if base date is not equal to nil, I'll return the base date. Otherwise, I'll return the get default date. And Command U. So now my date will never be nil, and I have to always check for the dates that are correct here. Okay, and this is not all. I can get rid of this. This is no longer an optional. Command U. Okay, yeah. If I'm not getting this an optional, I need to unwrap this as anyway. So what we can do to avoid this force unwrapping here, and still I'm doing this since this is not the way I like to do it. We can do various things here, but what I would like to do is say date equals base date, not double equals, but equals. Okay, so this is wrong. If let date equals base date, so this is if it's not nil, this is a swift way of getting it. If it's not nil, we return the date. Otherwise, we return the default date. And you see my tests are passing right now. So I'm not doing anything weird here. Or the other thing we can do here is do it like this. Return base date. And if my base date is nil, I'll return my get default date. And all my tests are passing. I like this better since it's less code and it gets the thing out of the way. And now since we have the date now here, we can just get rid of this, right? No, we can't. Okay, so this is what's going on. Since I have the date as an optional parameter here, I need to get rid of this also. I'm going to do Command U. This will never get in the way here. Command U, and I'm going to get rid of this optional also here in the date. And now you can see I can unwrap this. And I'm still failing to build this. Why? Okay. So now my test here. Now I cannot pass a nil date, and that's actually great. So now we can do any date here. Command U. And now these two tests actually I don't care about it, right? Since I don't need this anymore. Because I'm always returning this. Yes, actually it's not that simple. I don't need this test, but I do need a test that returns a fighter emblem if the date is the default date. So these tests are no longer needed here, but I do, so I'm going to do Command U. But I do need a test when it's the get default date to return this fighter emblem, okay? So to make this test fail, instead of the fighting, I'm going to, okay? Now this never is going to be nil, and I'm really sure this date now, now I like it because I don't need to force unwrap this, and this is not going to crash. But if somehow I'm getting these dates messed up, I want this to be the... I actually don't need this now. If I erase this Command U, all my tests are going to pass. So Command U, and all my tests are passing. So I don't need a default emblem here, because my emblem will be calculated by this, right? For my base date, and my base date is always something, and I need to test what will happen if I want to calculate an emblem with a base date, my date. I think it will fail. Let's just func test get emblem for default date. Let's see what happens, okay? I'm going to say should return fighter, just for the sake of it. And let's see what happens. Let SUT equals make SUT, normal one, CT assert equal, SUT dot get emblem. For date, my get default date is my date from time interval since 1970 0, and should return emblem dot fighter. Command U, and it's passing. Oh yeah, it's passing because my calculate emblem will always return a fighter. Yeah, so you see, it's very cool. So if it doesn't go into here and doesn't know what to do with the emblems, it will just return a fighter emblem. And this is cool, since now I know my tests are passing, and I got rid of the unwrapping, and I'm now comfortable that my app's not going to crash. So cool, huh? So then source commit push to remote finished the forced unwrapping with a default date since 1970. Commit to files and push, and now I'm feeling very comfortable that my app won't crash. And that's how we resolve the issue of these things that I don't like, you see. And actually I don't like that, because if we're testing, it doesn't matter if I don't want my app to crash. And since we're testing, this should always get good. Also, if I want to test the get emblem for this should return the fighter, let's see if I put here assassin, Command U. I should have this test failing, and you see my test was failing from this. So I'm pretty sure that now my test, and that's the only test that was failing, okay? So now I'm pretty sure that this covers that default case. So my default case will always be a fighter emblem, no matter what. Okay, so that's it for this week. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.